And this is about the troubled teen industry, where there are basically all kinds of fairly unregulated, without oversight, companies that say, hey, you send your teen to us and we'll get them on the right path. This institutional care often results in institutional abuse. And what we did when we passed and funded that bill, because we had both authorized it and then we funded it, was to have the National Academies of Science study, because there's 50,000 kids that are in these institutional settings each year. They're often taken away in the middle of the night under arrangements with the parents. The parents think they're sending their kids to get help, but often they're sending their kids into abuse. Will you take a look at this issue and just kind of track the national academies as they proceed to study this? And if there are ways that we can reduce abuse, help us find that path.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. To follow up, you noted that it would be up to the 5 commissioners that you appoint to determine whether there are any guidelines. Will you encourage the folks that you select to ensure that folks who were convicted of violent acts against police officers do not get compensation from this fund?
Well, I expect they will. They don't have the option of establishing guidelines. The commissioners will establish guidelines. And so
will you encourage them to have a guideline that says those who have been convicted of violent acts against police officers are not eligible?
I will definitely encourage the commissioners to take everything into account when determining who should get compensation.
But why not this specific issue of violent acts, convicted of violent acts against police officers? Do you feel they should get compensation after being convicted of violent acts?
My feelings don't matter, Senator, in my mind. My mind is not limiting to say this, yes, I will commit to this or that. What I will commit to is making sure that the commissioners are effectively doing their jobs, and that includes setting guidelines like you're describing.
Okay, I'm disappointed that you feel it's acceptable that those who are convicted of violently assaulting.
I definitely did not say that. I didn't say I found it acceptable, Senator.
Will you agree to encourage those commissioners to set a guideline that compensation will not go to individuals who are convicted of assaulting police officers? Just a yes would answer my question. Or no?
Yes will not answer that question. I mean, you're asking whether I will encourage. I don't think that's a fair word. I don't think it's the Attorney General's job to encourage commissioners to do or not do anything.
Okay, well, we'll move on, but I will say that you have complete power over who you appoint, so you have huge influence. You are going to be evaluating the inclinations and attitudes of those who will serve, and certainly this looks extraordinary. You described it as parallel to a fund set up to compensate Native Americans who were discriminated against in the agricultural world. It's not parallel at all. President Obama did not sue his own Department of Justice. He did not have a judge saying that Williams had, how did she put it? Kathleen Williams, the judge handling the lawsuit, dismissed the case and in her filing admonished the government agency, notably the Justice Department, for not being transparent about the settlement deal. Williams previously assigned a group of attorneys to determine whether there was a conflict of case, since as sitting President Trump was suing entities whose decisions are subject to his direction. This type of conflict of interest is not at all involved in the fund set up to compensate those who are discriminated against in the agricultural realm. I want to go on to the Epstein investigation. Is it closed or open?
When you say the Epstein investigation, what are you referring to, Senator?
Well, the FBI said in last year in July that it had closed the Epstein investigation. So I'm just using their words. Is it open or closed?
I don't believe the FBI said that.
If you're referring, you're head of the Department of Justice. Is the Epstein investigation open or closed?
But I guess I don't understand what Epstein investigation means. The investigation
let me put it
Jeffrey Epstein himself, yes, he's dead. Any investigation into potential other bad guys will always be open if we have evidence that supports in any way, shape, or form that we can make a case.
Okay, so Trump said in November, this was after the FBI, and it was the FBI words when they said the investigation was closed, but what Trump wrote in November of last year, I'll be asking the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots, the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationships with, and he gave a specific list, Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, people at J.P. Morgan, and many other people to determine what was going on. Is there a list particularly targeted at Democrats as opposed to being, if you will, blind to party affiliation, investigations that are being pursued under your direction?
Any investigation, no matter Republican, Democrat, man, woman, old, young, any investigation will be open if the Department of Justice and the FBI have evidence that a crime's been committed. And that doesn't, I mean, you're talking about Epstein.
You commit to pursue regardless of political affiliation?
Excuse me, Senator?
You commit to pursuing investigations free of prejudice about party affiliation?
Of course, yes.
Well, you say of course, but this president has repeatedly spoken of an enemies list that he wants to go after. And I must say, it's one of the symbols of the breakdown of a democratic republic when a president uses his Department of Justice, which you now head, to go after his perceived political enemies. I hope you won't be party to that. Thank you.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why what happened during the Biden administration was so disgusting.
That is completely inappropriate and wrong. There is no comparison to the absolute fair-minded pursuit of justice under the previous administration and this administration's pursuit of an enemies list. Thank you.
Senator Murray.
I believe Senator Fisher was next. Yeah.
Senator Fisher, so glad of you to join us.
Thank you.
Trying to ingratiate myself with the ranking member of the
No,
committee.
you didn't see me at the kiddie table. It's fine. So, Mr. Attorney General, welcome. Senator Murkowski brought up to you about the consolidation of the grant programs, yes, and also that the budget request is one.
What you just heard is the part of the hearing the senator came to document. He did not arrive to trap Pam Bondi. He arrived to ask the Attorney General of the United States a question simple enough to fit in a single sentence. Is the Epstein investigation open or closed? That is the entire question. It contains 4 words of substance: open or closed. The answer to that question is binary. The senator cited the FBI's own language. In July of the previous year, the FBI stated it had closed the Epstein investigation. The senator used their words, not his own. He handed the Attorney General the frame the Bureau itself had built and asked her to tell him whether that frame still stood. What he got back was this: when you say the Epstein investigation, what are you referring to, Senator? Read that exchange carefully. The Attorney General of the United States, the person confirmed to lead the Department of Justice, the person sitting before the Senate Judiciary Committee under oath, responded to the phrase, the Epstein investigation, by asking the senator to define it. Then she went further. After the senator cited the FBI's own July statement, Bondi said, I don't believe the FBI said that. Then the senator asked again. The response, I guess I don't understand what Epstein investigation means. That is the sentence this hearing leaves on the record. 2 things can be true at the same time. Bondi may be entirely correct that the term the Epstein investigation is legally imprecise, that there are potentially multiple investigative threads, multiple subjects, multiple jurisdictions, and that a sitting attorney general should not characterize the status of any active investigative matter in an open congressional hearing. She may also be correct that conflating the closure of an investigation into Epstein himself, a dead man, with the status of any ongoing investigations into other individuals would be a genuine legal error that could compromise live cases. Both of those are reasonable positions for a sitting attorney general to hold. What the senator was asking, however, was not a legal brief, it was a status check. The head of the Department of Justice could not tell a United States senator whether the federal government's investigative interest in the Jeffrey Epstein matter was active or concluded. That refusal is what this hearing deposits into the permanent record. The most overlooked part of this exchange is what followed the definitional impasse. Once Bondi arrived at her answer, that any investigation into potential other bad guys would always remain open if supported by evidence, the senator moved directly to the next pressure point. He read into the record a statement President Trump made in November of the previous year. The president had written that he would be asking the Attorney General and the FBI to investigate Epstein's involvement and relationships with a specific named list: Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, individuals at J.P. Morgan. The senator then asked whether there was a list particularly targeted at Democrats. whether the investigations being pursued were blind to party affiliation or directed by the list the president had provided. Bondi said, of course, any investigation would be pursued free of prejudice about party affiliation. The senator did not argue the point. He had made it. The transcript now contains the question about whether the Epstein investigation is open or closed. It contains the response in which the Attorney General said she did not understand what that phrase meant. It contains the moment she said she did not believe the FBI had used that language the Bureau had in fact used. And it contains the silence where Bondi could have said, "The investigation into Jeffrey Epstein himself is closed. Any investigation into others alleged to have been involved in criminal conduct remains an active matter," and chose not to. Those words travel with this hearing into every future moment. When Congress asks the Department of Justice to account for what it is and is not pursuing in the Epstein matter, they travel into the questions already being raised about which names on the president's November list have received investigative attention and which have not. They travel into the oversight requests that Senate Democrats have since directed at the department regarding the handling of Epstein-related files. They travel into the broader question of whether an attorney general who could not define the scope of this investigation in February will be asked to define its conclusions later, and what she will say then. The same question has now been asked across multiple oversight contexts. The same structural non-answer has followed. So, was the senator exploiting a politically charged name to generate a moment that would travel farther than the hearing itself? Was Bondi delivering a legally defensible position that a sitting attorney general cannot publicly characterize the open or closed status of any investigative matter without risking interference with active cases or prejudicing potential prosecutions? Or was she refusing to say the one sentence a witness in her position in that room should have been able to say? Two different stories. Same hearing, same official record. Tell me in the comments which version you walked away believing. If you stayed this long, subscribe. This story isn't finished.